that exists but can't be seen. It is the united hope of the future. Let's celebrate unity and connection.
And I'm going to start. Hi, I'm Gloria Noto, and I'm the founder of Noto Botanics, which is an all-natural, gender-fluid, clean beauty line for your full body. And this is a masterclass on teaching you a little bit about how to start a business, how to build a brand, a little bit of my backstory on why I started my brand and how I've gotten to this point with it. And at the end of the class, I'm going to do a really quick recipe with you on how you can actually make something at home. So this is my first masterclass. So I'm excited to be here and share some of my knowledge with you. After this masterclass, if there's ever a point in which you might have a question directly related to me, please feel free to email me. My email address is noto@notobotanics.com. I'm at home in California, and my dog is on the couch right there. So that's Mio. She might move around, but welcome to my home. So, like I said, I'm the founder of Noto Botanics, and I started my company about, I think it's coming up on almost 5 years. It's about 4.5 years now. And originally before that, I had started out as a makeup artist, and I have been a makeup artist for over 13 years now. Still am doing it, but not very, very frequently because I'm running my business. So to give you a little bit of a background on where I started and how I started, like I said, I had been doing makeup for many, many years before I considered starting my line. And during this phase in my life, this particular phase in my life, I was kind of questioning what work I was putting out into the world, what my mark was on the world, if I was helping the world at all, and kind of, you know, what was I giving back? I wasn't feeling totally connected to the makeup work that I was doing. So it led me into considering what some of my other options could be. Around this time as well, so there was like this mental space happening, and then around this time as well, I started to work with clients, specifically my celebrity clients, that were starting to demand me to use clean beauty on them. This was a relatively new mainstream idea. There weren't very many brands in the mainstream market that I was familiar with, and the ones that I did find, I wasn't necessarily loving, especially when it came to like the actual makeup of things. I wasn't necessarily loving them. I didn't feel like they were inclusive, whether or not that was in the range, the color range, the options that you had in that, or whether that was, you know, even in the identity of the brands. So around this time as well, I was also putting it on myself to really clean up my diet, to learn about, you know, what is organic food, or what is sustainability, or what does you know, what are parabens, or what are toxic ingredients, whether that was in food or whether that was in makeup. These were questions that were really starting to become bigger picture things in my mind. So I cleaned up my diet. I cleaned up all of that. I started reading up on things. I started reading up on herbalism, even aromatherapy, started mixing up my own concoctions. I also had really terrible skin throughout my whole entire 20s. So I was also trying to figure out my own healing remedies for myself. I also had, still do have, an autoimmune disease. At the time I didn't realize what it was, called Epstein-Barr, which really affects your immune system as well as your liver and your energy. So I was on a personal path of trying to figure out my own health and my own well-being. So those two worlds kind of collided, and that's when I started, like I said, to mix my own things out of not only personal necessity, but also work-related necessity based off of what my clients' needs were. So as I started to dive into looking at other brands, to bring it back to the point I just made, I wasn't seeing anything that I felt connected to, that I felt resonated with me. The more and more I got involved into the wellness space, I had friends that were like superstars in the wellness world, getting invited to events or going, to different things that evolved into that space. I was feeling more and more disassociated with that as well and disconnected to that. I felt that I wasn't seeing the wellness world in an inclusive way as a queer woman. I definitely didn't feel connected in that space. It felt very cisgender, very privileged, and I wasn't connecting in that. And then when I took it another step farther to look at it, I also wasn't seeing representation within the BIPOC community either. So putting everything together, me questioning what I was putting out into the world, me really changing up everything into my internal world, health-wise, spiritually, and then my clients also kind of shining light on a need that I started to see represented as a need in mainstream culture. Everything kind of came together for me, and I decided not instantly, but over a period of time, that this might be an area that could use some innovation. And so it got really bad for me at one point where I thought maybe I'll just quit everything I'm doing and try something totally different. However, I then kind of put it all together and realized, you know what, maybe the world doesn't need a brand new cosmetic line, but the world might need a new way of looking at beauty and might need a new way of looking at the wellness space. And hence I started to develop what I wanted to put out into the world with that. I wanted to create something that was multi-use, representative of all people, whether that was in queer identity or whether that was by POC individuals or the combination of the two, and kind of, create a new culture within the wellness space. Because I really wasn't seeing anything like that. On top of it, I wasn't seeing a design that I liked either. I wanted something clean and sleek. I had personal interests in the 90s, like Helmut Lang or CK1. I remember as a kid seeing the CK1 ads, like I'm sure many of us, changed my life in a big way because I hadn't seen anything like that. I didn't see anything that was gender fluid. That's also a really big point on what I do with my brand. Everything is gender fluid. So my point in telling you all these details is to kind of help you understand that my brand comes from a place of personal need, personal interest, deep inspirations, and then also a need that I kind of believe to see that was outside of me, something else that people maybe needed as well that they weren't getting. Because I felt, if I felt that there was a gap in this, I imagine other people do too. And then I also knew that because a lot of my friends that were queer or that are people of color felt that there were misrepresentations or underrepresentations within their community, and they didn't feel able to connect either. So the point in that is saying, leading into what makes a good brand. I think making a good brand is an authentic story, is something that the founder truly believes in and isn't just trying to follow a trend or trying to follow the leader, or trying to just kind of play along. They see a hole missing, they'll just fill it because they think they can bank off of it. I think we've moved out of that space. I think we are moving out of that space even farther every day, where not only are people that are creating brands wanting to be more connected to what they're doing, but also the customer, the consumer wants to be connected to the brands that they are putting their money towards. Because I believe that every time you put your money towards something, every time you purchase something, you're making a vote towards what you think counts. And I think other people are starting to really feel that way as well. So creating a brand that has authenticity and transparency within that space, I think is becoming absolutely mandatory. Especially based off of everything that we've been seeing over the last few weeks Brands are getting called out left and right for not being authentic. And, you know, the last thing that somebody wants is to be on that list of being called out. So therefore, be real with it, be honest with it, and have integrity with what you're doing. So that's kind of what I think makes a good brand. That's where I would start. If you're looking to start a brand, think about, if you're not sure what you should do yet, think about what you care about. Think about what matters to you. Think about what you believe in or what you feel is missing because you need it, or someone that's close to you needs it. There's something that you're passionate about. Sharing with the world is not being told. First of all, you'll have a lot more fun as a business owner doing something like that. And secondly, others will connect deeply to that as well, because we're not alone in this world. I think though we may feel that we're individual, we all have different needs, but at the same time, the same needs, just in different ways. And each of us likes our story to be told within those needs in maybe different ways, and that's who your audience is. So first things first, I think that's what makes a good brand. Start out there. And then as you build your brand, you know, understand what makes a brand of integrity. So I can only speak for myself and how I try to run my company and where I'm going with my company. We're about 4.5 years old. Like I said, it's a small team of 6, including myself, full-time employees, and a handful of independent contractors. And to me, that feels really magical that I can even say I have that many employees and that many, you know, people working with us, because just a couple of years ago, it was just me, one other person, and another person helping make product. And I think for me, what shifted was when I was able to put all of my attention on my company. Not all of us are privileged to be able to come up with an idea and raise money and or have money already to start your own line or your own brand or whatever, and then just go straight into that. A lot of us have to spend, in my case, I think I started out with maybe like $500 and just made some ready to order product and just tested it out. I had to work still full time as a makeup artist up until about 1.5 years ago. And I still do work as a makeup artist at times because I care about it, and also I still need to at times. So you don't need to have $1 million to start your own line or your own company. I'm telling you that based off of my own real experience. You might have to have 2 jobs. You might have to have 2 full-time jobs, which is your dream and your job, until you can get to the point in which you have the ability to then choose your dream over your job. And that's okay. It just means just a little bit of extra hard work, but you have to remember that the goal in mind is to then get to a point where you can focus solely on your dream, because it does need that attention. You know, that saying, what you put your attention to grows. And if you're unable to give your all to your dream, then you might miss out on opportunities, or things might slip through the cracks. As soon as I switched over to just, I had the option to like switch, you know, sales were up to the point where I could supplement some of my income and keep production and, you know, have my employee. Everything changed for me. It was almost like energetically things changed. It was almost as if it was like the next day that things started to come in a different way. And I was able to really flesh out and you know, organize my thoughts and put them into action, and not just, you know, bring my computer on set and answer all the emails as quick as I could on my lunch breaks or what have you. So I do think it's important to really focus on the fact that if you might not have privilege to 100% focus on your goal, you're still going to have to, and you're going to have to figure it out. It just might mean you have to be a little bit tired, and you might have to work a little bit longer. Some of the things that I invested in first were, you know, obviously like imagery, making a good product, the branding, the message. I really wanted the message to be very clear, and, you know, kind of coming up with my mission statement, because if you, and this could be a mission statement that you keep to yourself only and nobody knows about it, but you will have to use that as a guideline for what you want to do with your company. And it's probably pretty important for you to understand what that message is at the very beginning, so you can always come back to it, check yourself, see if you're still on path with that goal, or if that goal needs to be, if that mission needs to be renegotiated because maybe you've changed or whatever. So definitely start out with, you know, kind of a mission, a personal mission with that as well. Another thing that was really important for me to start my line was coming up with, you know, suppliers that were ethical, that that gave good practices, that gave sustainability practices. You know, it's really hard out there if you don't have a lot of money to start a brand, because minimum orders are for supplies and ingredients are really high if you want to, you know, have something of purest and best quality, but not, you know, break the bank. That's something that's really wrong with our systems. We definitely need to work on that, where it's kind of like a mandatory thing to be able to offer sustainable ingredients, packaging, all these sorts of things. But if you can get to a point where that's what you're focusing on, even if you can just start out with recycled boxes that have been made of recycled material, or you know, glass if you can, or that sort of thing. So those have always been kind of important steps within my path. It's like, what can I include to have the least impact on the planet? And then, you know, leading into, well, what, you know, what are the goals? Where can I go with this? How much do I need to spend in order to get the thing that I need the most? You don't have to be perfect at first, but you definitely want to always try to move towards that. I like to think like minimal shifts make great change. As long as you're continuously making minimal shifts towards the bigger picture, don't be too hard on yourself if you can't do it all at the beginning. I like to kind of think of it that way, where it's, you know, it's a marathon, not a race, whether that's like with your beliefs or what you're trying to achieve energetically, or if that's what you're trying to achieve on a sustainability level, you know, on all those sorts of things. It's just making sure that you're continuously always working towards those things is important. Yeah, so, you know, that would be an important thing for me to focus on. And then the next thing for me would have been, well, okay, who are our models? Like, who's representing the brand? That's also very important, because you want that to be coming from a very authentic place as well. You never want to be tokenizing. You never want to be trying to greenwash, or trying to, you know, get into a point where it's not authentic to the brand. So you really want to think about who and how and what you're putting in front of your brand, and if that is true to who you are as well. For me, all of our models have been either friends or people that I admire. They've all been, you know, activists, or people doing charity work, or people with a bigger picture on how to like help the world. That's always been something of importance to me, to kind of highlight those people too, because I think that can change the way that old branding is done. Just kind of, you know, putting just a beautiful face in front of the camera is something nice to look at, but there's so many stories to tell. And I think having a brand is about storytelling. So what kind of story are you trying to tell with your brand is really the question. And then if you get the opportunity to hire people, who are you hiring? Who are you investing in? Because if you're just starting out, and like I keep saying, if you don't come at it having a bunch of money to begin, you're going to be investing in your team, because you're probably going to be finding people at entry level that are just really excited to work with you, and are willing to take a sacrifice until you can give them a kickback. In my case, that's how it was and is. I think that it's really important to understand that you do need to invest in your team. You do need to give them encouragement, tools, you know, any structures. I think building structure is also really important, and systems, understanding what internal systems mean. These are really, you know, important things to think about. And if you do have the opportunity to hire a consultant that can help you kind of navigate these things, that might be wise. I have hired consultants in the past, and that's been super helpful for me as well. So, you know, whether that's somebody that's training an employee or even yourself on how to do operations, which is a huge part of a business, is understanding how much you're actually spending on making your products, so you know what your price margins should be and your cost of goods are, and, you know, understanding how to buy your materials, and if you're doing it in the most efficient way, understanding how to do your taxes properly. Like, these are really important things you want to think about. It can be very overwhelming at first, but you just have to think about it as piece by piece, and you will learn along the way. So that's kind of, you know, a big part of I think what's important is, like, what's your message? What materials are you choosing to use? Who are you hiring, and how are you training your team, and who are you delegating to? And what's the brand imagery? What does that look like? What's the story that you're trying to tell? You know, for me, it's a combination of talking about people and talking about the change that we're making in this world, while also talking about skincare and aesthetics and sustainability and quality ingredients. And, you know, especially when it comes down to the quality of ingredients, that's, like, very important to me. And being able to tell the story of, you know, my brand is based on botanics. So telling the story of herbs and oils and what, you know, what they do for you, that's really special. So make sure you read up and learn on what it is that you're putting out there, and educate yourself too. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of a breakdown on what I've started to do. And now I'm moving into this next phase in my business where I've kind of fine-tuned most of those things, or I'm working towards fine-tuning them even more so. But I'm moving into that, you know, second or third phase of my business where we're now looking at what it means to scale. How can we scale? And, you know, I opened a storefront a few months ago. Ironic timing, however, you know, thinking about what that next step is for your brand, and what is your 5-year term or goals, you know, and kind of working backwards to the point of which you can then begin to move towards that. Yeah, bigger picture is always nice to think about, but don't get overwhelmed with it. It's definitely something you work towards, and you learn a lot along the way. So I wanted to kind of also lead into, on another creative side, on the flip side, talk about some ingredients and talk about products and how I started to formulate things. I'm not a formulator by expertise. Like I said, I'm a makeup artist that is passionate about ingredients, that's passionate about nature's oils and herbs and what it can do for you out of personal experience working with them, whether that's internally or externally. So, you know, I learned about all of the formulas that I did by personal experimentation. So every product that I made, I have come up with the premise of what I wanted to achieve with it. And one way of doing that is, you know, if you're coming at it with a little bit more of a place like me where I'm self-taught, I think for me, what I started to do is think first, like, what was it that I wanted to achieve with what was the need? First of all, what's the need I have? Okay, so my skin is breaking out and it's kind of oily, but it's kind of dry, so it needs to be balanced somehow, and I want it to feel brighter. That's what I thought of when I made my deep serum, which is one of my first products that I launched. It's our face serum, face and neck serum. So I started to research, you know, what kind of essential oils and ingredients and carrier oils are great for doing these things. And I came to the conclusion of my formula by trial and error, and, you know, picking the different things, putting them all together, doing test batches, seeing what works, spending a lot of time testing these things and sharing them with friends and models and people in my circle that would be willing to be guinea pigs for me, basically. and seeing how it worked with other people and seeing what other people thought about it and if they had any feedback for me. So that's also something really important, is like testing your product out before you decide to put it out there for others. You want to make sure it's safe for other people and how they're reacting to it. Not only just how you're reacting to it, you want to always make sure that you have a lot of representation, whether that's like if you're putting out a color or if it's like a certain type of ingredient. How does it work for different skin tones and different people that have different needs? And also, you know, how does it work for you? What do you think about it? What are you loving about it or not loving about it? So that's, you know, doing the research in that way is really, really important. And like I said, thinking about what the outcome of the product is that you want to achieve, and then going and seeking information on what kind of ingredients will do that, and then mixing your own thing. There's 1,000,001 different formulas that somebody could create, but what you decide to put into it is special to you. So have fun with it and experiment with it. I think it's really a time to kind of just like let your natural senses, your intuition lead you. I definitely did that when I first made my rooted oil, which is an oil that has a lot of different tree oils, a lot of different earthy scents, and a little bit of flower, a little bit of, you know, it's very grounding. And I just remember seeking out as many oils that would give a smoky scent or a lighter scent, or, you know, just the different things, and then putting it to my nose and comparing like, oh, this oil next to this oil, what would it smell like if they were together? And like intuition, you know, just letting it lead the way. And I came up with one of my favorite products that's so unique and so special. So let your intuition guide you, and let your playfulness guide you in that as well. I do suggest early on taking, if you're going to mix product, if you're watching this because you're interested in creating a skincare line and you're just sort of testing it out on your own, take really detailed notes. Try to get a scale, a measuring scale, maybe weigh things out in grams, you know, that sort of thing. Because I learned the hard way that you can't just say like 3 drops of one thing and 2 drops of another thing. It will never come out the way you originally made it. I had to learn that the very hard way of just like, yes, let your intuition lead you, but then when it comes to writing the recipe, do it right. Because you will be bummed if you miss out on some of your concoctions that you can't understand what you've written. That's a really important piece of advice, I would say. So yeah, have fun with it. Think about what kind of packaging you want. Research things, order samples, find suppliers and see if you can get samples sent to you so you can, you know, test out the quality. And a lot of different oils smell different. You know, one vetiver might smell different from another vetiver based off of your supplier. So definitely, you know, you might want to spend a little bit of money investing in the R&D of it all, the research and development of it all. That's kind of the fun part though, out of, you know, all of it. It's like creating your experiments, your little potions, I think. That's really special. So, you know, there's a list when it comes to suppliers for ingredients. There's many suppliers out there and they can range from extremely expensive to very cheap. If, you know, back to the conversation of if you're trying to create a skincare line or a product line, be considerate of who your suppliers are, because the last thing you want to do is create a eco-conscious or brand that's about celebrating the earth and then strip the earth of its nutrients by like working with suppliers that are maybe hurting the environment or working their employees in, you know, a racist way, not taking care of their employees, exploiting their employees. You want to really think about that. You know, if you're using mica, you may or may not know that a lot of mica is mined by children and is slave labor and child labor. So you may want to consider finding a supplier that does not practice that. So there's a lot to learn about the supply chain, you know, not just in a way of like, oh, I can recycle these bottles, or, oh, this box will biodegrade. it goes way beyond that. You know, how are the employees treated? How are the crops treated? Are they cutting, you know, like we use a Palo Santo in one of our oils, and it's an endangered oil. However, ours is made from Palo Santo branches that have fallen off the tree, and it's never made from new crop. So you might want to consider, what does that look like? You know, getting a supplier that doesn't use new crop. So you want to do the research. You want to think about what matters to you, and that's part of the message. You know, if you're creating a brand that's saying it cares about certain things, but then on the flip side, it's filled with the sweat off of the backs of people that are making it, or the earth, it's kind of contradicting. So, so yeah, you might want to consider what that looks like too. And you could also consider looking at local farmers if there's ingredients that you think that you can find locally. If you're able to support your community in that way, that's probably the most ideal way. However, I do understand that a lot of ingredients are globally sourced. There's certain things that you can't find other than in certain areas. But consider that could also be a really great way to start something out as well. So another, you know, on the topic of skincare, one thing to think about is you might be able to mix things right out of your own kitchen. You know, obviously coconut oil is a thing. You maybe avoid it for the face, but it's great for the body. You might be able to walk in your neighborhood and realize, oh, there's a bunch of rosemary plants. Here in California, like when I walk up my street, I'm finding rosemary, I'm finding lavender, I'm finding like orange blossoms, I'm finding different flowers. There's so many different things that, you know, you could take home and infuse your oils with, or distill in a pot and like let the steam come up and collect the steam. There's so many different ways that you can create your needs with what you actually already have. As a kid, my mom would use olive oil all over her body. I'm Sicilian, my parents are from Sicily. So as a kid, I remember my mom doing the weirdest things because, you know, she was from another country and I was the American daughter. She would rub olive oil all over her, and I thought that was so gross because olive oil is for eating, right? However, as an adult, I definitely partake in that, and olive oil is actually so incredible for the body, so like nutrient dense, so hydrating, really clean. So, you know, something like that you could use. Sesame seed oil is actually really, really great for the skin as well. So you definitely can do a lot of research to see what's already available at your own home, and you can mix and test batches out that way too. Or if you're in a bind, you can, you know, and your skin's dry, you might find like the next best recipe right in your kitchen. So that kind of leads me into just trying to backtrack and think, you know, we kind of touched base on how you could start your business, where you can start from. It's also really, you know, great pointer to think about if there's anyone that you know that's done it before, that you respect, or even if they've done something differently, but you respect them and somehow aligned. It's not a bad idea to always seek out a mentor or somebody that can give you some advice based off of whatever type of experience in life that they've had. It can be difficult to find that person, but never, you know, never give up hope on finding them. Just keep your eyes open for them, or just straight up ask around. That for me has been really helpful. It's taken me a while to find someone. I've recently found that person, and it's more business related. However, it's been so helpful for me to understand how to grow as a leader. You have to remember the fact that you are a leader, and you know, if you own your own business and if you plan on having employees, you're their leader. You're their, you know, the way you run your company is going to be a reflection on how they should run your company as well. So, you know, you want to consider maybe evolving yourself in that way too, and what that means and what type of leader you want to be as well. So those are some tips on like growing a business based off. Those are tips based off of my experience on growing a business and some things that have been really important for me and I've learned along the way. I hope that's helpful for you. And, like I said, if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them to the best of my knowledge, and yeah, help you figure it out too. So on the flip side, I thought it would be fun as we kind of wind out of this conversation to maybe show you a really quick recipe and how easy it is to make something from scratch. So I know I said that you can use things straight out of your kitchen. However, the things that I'm using here are really simple. They're really easy to find. You can find a local herbalist, you can find a local herb store, or you can find a website that maybe is a supplier that is just, small batch. Living Libations is a really good supplier. They make everything, I believe, from their own farm in Canada. Also, Mountain Rose Herbs is a really great company as well. Definitely great to start there. There's so many more, but those are two of my top ones that are at the top of my mind. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm going to make, it's been quarantine, it's been like a change of season from spring to summer. Personally, my skin has changed a lot by being home all the time. How, I'm not sure. I thought maybe it'd get better, but for some reason it really hasn't. Maybe because I've been sitting outside all the time. So my skin's getting a little dry and a little softer feeling, which is fine. But however, what I want to do is I want to make a kind of like a roll-on skin tightener and brightener. So once again, think about what I'd like to happen. I want my skin to tighten. I want it to, something especially that I'd like to put around my eye area, maybe on my lip as a lip oil. I want it to depuff. I want it to moisturize, and I want to make sure that I'm giving my skin vitamins to replenish it from anything I might be losing from being outside too long, or not drinking enough water, or whatever that I'm doing these days. So I'm going to make, you can find these little roller bottles online really simply. You could probably find them on Etsy. It's just like what you'd put like an essential oil in. I'm going to use this so it's easy to apply and easy to carry if I ever leave the house and just want to take it with me. So generally speaking, when you do an essential oil with a carrier, or if you use a carrier oil with, a more intense oil, you want to do pretty much the rule is like 1 drop of the more intense oil to every teaspoon of a carrier oil. And a carrier oil is basically the type of oil that's going to hold that more intense ingredient and make it be less intense to where it won't do the reverse effect and actually hurt your skin, because you have to remember we're working with herbs here, and herbs are medicine and they're powerful. So you'd never want to just like put on an essential oil just straight onto your skin, or any sort of like herb oil right onto the skin, because it might burn, it might be too intense. The oils I've picked today aren't ones that are going to be too intense. However, they are powerful. So the carrier oil that I love to use is jojoba oil. It's really light. It's really absorbent. It mimics your own skin's natural sebum production. So it almost, your skin thinks that it's coming from yourself. And the fact that it absorbs really quickly into the skin means that it's not going to clog the pores. Since I'm using it on my face, that's important for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a beaker here that has some measurements here. And I am going to fill just a little bit up with the jojoba oil. You can see it's clear, which is kind of nice. And then I have about 5 teaspoons in here. I'm gonna do a few more. And basically what I'm doing is I'm making kind of like a larger batch that can then be used and put into another container if you'd like to save it for later to refill this. So I have about 10 teaspoons here. So what that means is I'm going to add 10 drops of each of my oils. And the 2 oils that I'm going to include are coffee bean oil, which that's going to achieve the depuffing, that's going to achieve the tightening, it's going to awaken the skin, similar to how you think of drinking coffee. It's not going to necessarily add a bunch of caffeine into your system and it's going to keep you awake at night, but it's going to just kind of tighten the skin and pump it up a little bit. So I'm going to do 10 drops of that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this. And one great tool to use also is a dropper, a glass one, so it's easy to take in the product and clean it out. You can take the top off and then clean it out that way. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. Mix that around. You want to kind of be gentle with your oil. You don't want to like be too strong with how you mix it. You don't want to crush the molecule. You want it to just slowly kind of melt into itself. It also smells really amazing if you like the smell of coffee, which I do. It smells like coffee. And then the next oil that we're going to use is pomegranate oil, which is actually has 3 times the amount of antioxidants than green tea and red wine, which is a lot. And it's really great for helping skin and cell renewal. It's one of the best oils I think that you can use on your skin. It's also really great at helping remove or lighten acne or scar spots, like kind of more like the fresh ones. So I'm going to use that, and it has a dropper already built in it, and I'm going to put in 10 drops. Great. I like to smell everything that I mix. It has like a slight sweet smell to it, but smells pretty herbally. So one thing you want to consider when you're making your product is, for me anyway, I like to think, how does it smell? How does it what is it doing to my senses? Because it's not only what it's doing to my skin, but it's also what is it doing to my senses that's important to me. I want it to be a full sensorial experience. I want everything in my body to kind of get something out of it. So you may want to research what are some of your favorite scents in oils, and then see what their benefits are. It could be, the fact that you lead that way versus, what do you want the benefits to be, then find them. Maybe it's what do you want it to smell like, and then see what the benefits are. All right, so I love these because you can easily pour. And then at the top, and move it around a little bit to get the oil moving. Great. Great. And there you go. Homemade, easy to use, great for depuffing, great for applying, really great on the lips, actually. And you made it yourself. I'd be really curious to see what concoctions you come up with, and if you have any suggestions or ideas or things that you're proud of that you made because of this. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. And yeah, it can be as simple as starting out this way into moving into having a full company. That's how I started it, truly. It was just out of personal experimentation leading into, okay, I actually think I want to do this on a bigger scale. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was informative and fun for you. I hope that you're able to take away something and hopefully use it towards whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.